Hey everybody, how's it going? I was perusing the YouTube community tonight for trombone videos and trombone music related videos to kind of see what's out there and what kind of content would be great for me to add and get some ideas. And I was struck by not necessarily what kind of videos are out there, because there's a lot of great trombone players out there creating their own music and videos, but I was surprised of what's not out there. Now, in this case, it was videos related to instruments and equipment. And I know can be kind of a touchy subject, because a lot of trombone players like to defend their favorite brands, or some are adamant that certain brands are the kind that you need to be playing in certain situations and such. And I'm not going to lie, I'm a big Vincent Bach fan. I like collecting Bach trombones of all eras, especially the New York and Mount Vernon eras. And so I noticed, as I mentioned before, there wasn't a lot of videos out there of people showing off their instruments. You know, I'm kind of a gearhead myself, and I thought that I would share with you some of the instruments from my collection. And I would start with a video about possibly my most rare and, I guess, unique trombone that not a lot of people even know exists, that was once in the Bach lineup. And as you can see here, I'm holding up an alto trombone. And this is a very special alto trombone in that it is a Bach Mt. Vernon Model 1. Now, most people, when they think of the Bach alto trombone model, they think of the Model 39, which is the one that's in current production, and I think they've been making since the 70s. But don't quote me on that. And in the early Bach catalogs that I have, he doesn't mention the alto trombones at all. I think the earliest catalog I have found that mentions the or any alto trombone in the lineup comes from like 1974. So I knew they had made a few alto trombones before Selmer had bought the company, but I didn't know much information about them. I recently came across a couple of videos. Sorry, not a couple of videos, a couple of articles where one of the craftsmen for the Bach company during Vincent Bach's time had kind of written down a lot of model information of rare models that once existed that were never quite in the lineup, like the Model 9 and so forth. And he did mention that they had made 3 models of alto trombone before Selmer bought the company, and he lists them as the Model 1, the Model 2, and the Model 3. And so I did a little bit of research into figuring out how many of these things actually exist. And as far as I can tell, I can't find any information on the Model 2s or the Model 3. I do know that the Model 2s were made during the New York era and were the oldest alto trombone models that exist. But I can't find anybody that can reference them or claims they own one. From what I heard is that they only made 2 of the Model 2s. And the Model 3 alto was a Mount Vernon era alto trombone that was a custom instrument. And I don't have any information on the specifications on that instrument. But I do, as I mentioned before, have a Model 1. And I've been able to trace the existence of 3 Model 1 altos. And I have contacted a guy that has access to all of the Bach shop cards related to the trombones, and he says that only like 3 or 4 were ever made. So this could be one of 3, it could be one of 4, but he's not 100% sure, because this is actually kind of an early 6000 serial numbered instrument. And he says when you start getting around, I think it was like the 6200s, not all of the shop cards were filled out completely, because this was a time when Bach was getting ready to transfer all of the, I guess, the tooling and the machinery over to Selmer, and they had no interest in keeping the shop cards going. So the other people that I know owned Model 1s besides me is one is Charlie Vernon of the Chicago Symphony. I spoke with him at a master class at the University of Texas at Arlington a couple of years ago, and mentioned that I owned this instrument because I know he was a big collector of vintage Bach equipment, and he actually owned one. And I was able to, on a particular trombone related forum on the internet, discover someone that claimed in their profile that they owned a Model 1 and they played it in a trombone choir, a Moravian trombone choir. But I tried contacting him, and he had been inactive on this forum for some time. So I'm not sure if this person still owns it or what the current status of that is. I purchased this alto trombone, which of course, if you know, is in the key of E flat, from a person in Germany about 4 years ago, and I found it on German eBay. So I had to do a little bit of translating and convince the seller that to sell across the pond and to send the instrument back to the United States. And he said, well, if I paid the price and I wanted, he would do it if I threw in the shipping costs and all that. And I think I picked this thing up for about $1,100, which was pretty awesome, because I know in the States, if it would have been more advertised, it probably would have gone for a lot more. It has a red brass, probably a gold brass bell. But if you know anything about the metal of the Mount Vernon years, this is a little bit redder than the standard gold brass that we're used to seeing on the Bach trombones of today. In fact, Bach didn't refer to it as gold brass; he referred to it as German brass. But essentially, it is the same thing. And when I received the instrument from Germany, it had a few problems with it. The tuning slide ferrules had been, well, the bottom one here had been replaced with an Edwards tuning slide ferrule to make it a reversed tuning slide. And a previous owner had, I don't know if it's going to come across in the video here, had actually etched his name into the bell, and then someone else tried to take it off. And so you really can't see it. It looks more like a indentation in the bell, but that was stuff that was done before I got it. And so I took this instrument to a great instrument craftsman here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and had him convert as many of the parts. In fact, I said take everything off of it that's not Bach and put on a Bach part. So he said that not everything is in spec with the modern 39 altos. And so but he did put on a 39 tuning slide ferrule and changed a couple of the parts to put everything back to the way it was supposed to look. So that's all gone. He did try to buff and clean up the etching in there, which I think he did a good job, but you'll always notice it as being there. But the bell is actually really thick for an alto trombone, and I don't think it really affects the integrity or the sound of the bell. But this is very similar to a Bach 39 alto in that it has a 6.5-inch bell and is in like the 490 bore range. I'm not sure if it's the same bore as the modern 39 alto, but it's definitely a sub 500 bore alto, pitched in the key of E flat, and it does have the odd quirk of the bell being in a little bit closer than you typically would find on a trombone. You put the slide in 4th position. I know some alto makers today compensate for that. But this is a shorter bell, so you just have to be aware of that when you're playing fourth positions. And I think a lot of that has to do with the Bach design slide, which is a little bit longer than a typical alto trombone slide. And now that I'm looking at this, I do remember I did have one other thing that the craftsman repaired on this was he had to, or I should say there was a few dents down here, and he had to take off the bottom crook. So when he did that, he did have to re-lacquer the bottom there. So that's not 100% original, but it does have the original Bach Mt Vernon ferrules on that, and that is the original tuning slide, or the hand slide crook. So it's a lot of original parts, and I didn't have him pull the lead pipe like I do on most of my other instruments, because I don't think I'm going to be changing it out with anything else, and I didn't want to have it damaged. He says if he pulled it on an old lead pipe, it may damage it, and it might not work again. So I said just keep it in there, and we'll just run with it. So anyway, guys, let me get you a close-up here of the engraving. Hopefully that is coming across in the camera. As I said, that's a Bach Mt Vernon Model 1. possibly one of 3, one of 4, who knows, could be one of 5, but I know that there's not a lot of them out there, and that this instrument is super duper rare. I don't play it that often because I don't play alto that often or have a need to it, but I have played it with a couple of orchestras and various brass chamber groups that I've tried to utilize it in. And it sounds like a small alto trombone, which is nice because, in my opinion, a lot of the modern altos get a little bit big and are almost like cut down tenor trombones. And so I like the fact that it's the smaller bore, smaller bell, so it really sounds like it's an alto voice in the trombone family. And I'll try to get a couple of videos up of me playing and hacking through this because, as I said, I don't play alto that often, and I really got to work it up to play it well in tune. So there you guys go, a Model 1 Mount Vernon Bach trombone. One of the horns of my collection. So I hope you guys like this video. As I said, there's not a lot of content out there on instruments and people just showing off their horns. So I love talking about horns and the history of horns and different makes and models. So if you guys like this, let me know. And thanks for watching.